The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion. We're going to talk about social media, how to use it properly and wisely. I was just looking overall what's going on my social media page, and the whole topic around social media is how either if it dominates your life and how to get that under control and how to use it effectively. Well, let's see. We've made some mistakes along the way. Some of us have used social media as a form of a substitute, and we know that's not the way it is. But by today's standards, more people invest more time social on their social media page, on YouTube, maybe doing instructional videos. In this case, I do it for a web show, and I realize the way media is going, that we have to offer another alternative to entertainment. So I try to make this entertaining, not just a talk show, but entertaining with facts and information that would actually be of real benefit. So I don't want to dwell on all the negatives because I think there's plenty of that. I think one of the big negatives, though, now that I said I don't want to dwell on it, I do want to point out some things, though. And the whole thing about unfriending people. Now, it's not one of my favorite topics, but it's one I wish we would tackle more because I think it does a lot of harm, okay, to future relationships, and I think that a lot of relationships are damaged because of unfriending. Now, here's something that we want to keep in mind. A lot of people unfriend for a lot of the dumbest reasons, but these dumb reasons are important, okay? They don't get enough time alone with somebody on social media. They don't have a messenger page. Please, let's get back to reality. Most reasons a lot of people that can't keep up with social media is because, number one, it eats up a lot of data, and a lot of times privacy concerns, they don't have a messenger, and I think that's important, okay? You want to keep some things in check and balance, okay? But when we think in terms of how we use social media for business, for work, are we going to effectively bring people in? Well, in some cases, I look at my social platform and sometimes I think I'm not very, very, very effective. If I can't draw them to want to participate or watch, in this case, the Court of Public Opinion, I think there's plenty of opinions out there, but I do look at overall what's going on, okay? And a lot of, I'm speaking for myself as an adult, most children they have a YouTube Kids page now. I mean, it's amazing how social media dominates our time. I was doing a little bit of a social experiment on my niece, and I couldn't get the tablet out of her hand. She's 6 years old, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. I can't even get this tablet out of her hand. Parents use this. Unfortunately, it's become a substitute for how kids interact with mom and dad. You, as a parent, have to get a handle on this. You know, it dominates a lot of your time. A lot of people, it's a lot of bad press on selfies, okay? Let's talk about selfies. I think it's a good way to promote yourself positively or negatively, okay? I wouldn't be giving any screenshots to, your private parts either, okay? Try to be careful with that, because that could do a lot of harm down the road, okay? You want to manage your social profile in a way that you can at least be comfortable with how you conduct yourself out there, okay? I wouldn't be doing anything on social media you wouldn't be doing in public. I wouldn't be putting myself in an awkward situation, and then you would shy away from relationships, okay? Social media is useful, but it can be very harmful and destructive. So that's why I want to be able to talk about this topic where we can have a healthy balance, because what you do in social media and how you interact with that person outside of that are pretty different, okay? You can entertain yourself with a lot of videos, information. I always say get better informed about topics, know your topic better so that you can carry a conversation, because we want to be able to bridge the gap where we can have a social platform, but how we conduct ourselves out there, okay? And a lot of people are shy in this area. Social media is a cover for shy people, by the way, because I'm not, as much as I like to talk in this respect, I can shy away a lot. A lot of people don't know that about me. They think that I'm maybe more social, but in actuality, it's a lot easier to be social here than be as social out there. I mean, I can socialize, but one of the things that we are learning is that we've got to learn to stop breaking the rules in social media and how destructive has been. Okay, we still have to maintain some level and a grip on working outside of our quote social circle. So I think there's benefits to social media, but then there's some big setbacks, and I think we're starting to realize that the setbacks are bigger than sometimes the benefits. A lot of people invest a lot into social media, and unfortunately, that's a substitute of real hard work. And I don't want us to ignore our responsibilities and just be so caught up in our social media that we can't function outside of that. Um, we talk about a lot of topics on politics, news, science, things like that. That's great, okay? But out there, some of the things that we do need to do is everyday tasks, like getting up in the morning, exercise routine. Try to get a healthy balance of that, because if you can keep some balance in your life, then your social page will be an example of, you'll have a, I don't know, maybe you'll have something to brag about. I don't, there's not a lot more I can say about that, because I realize that a lot of people just talk about the best things, and a lot of you don't really want to publicize all your embarrassing moments, and that's not what I'm saying. And you're probably not going to post your ugliest picture, because if I did, boy, people would really be in for a shock, okay? It's always easier to post my best pictures, by the way, and I don't know about anybody else, but I wouldn't be posting my worst pictures. I'd probably have an unfriend list that long, you know. And I do laugh at the unfriending thing. I'm sorry. I think a lot of people, they don't look at their opportunities. That I think every relationship's an opportunity for growth, opportunity to change maybe some things in your life personally. Maybe it's not any of those things, but I don't I think in the beginning, and I apologize to anybody that if I unfriended you in the beginning, because I was kind of learning just like everybody else how to manage a social profile. But because it dominates so much of our time nowadays, we've been accused of talking about politics only, which, as you can see, we're not talking about politics. But we do talk about current events, okay? And some of it, which I think outside of what we talk about, I just want us to have a grip on what we're talking about so that we can have an everyday conversation. But there's something important to that. You can't have sometimes the same conversation that you have on the phone and social media, and adapt and try to micromanage that out there. It's not the same. How you relate to people on social media is a lot different than how you relate to people out there. Let's just make sure we get that straight. Okay, you're not going to have, it's a whole different dynamic. It's a whole different, and to be honest with you, I think most of our relationships are spiritual in nature. So you want to have an overall good relationship with God. Make sure you have that locked in, because social media, I think, is because there is so much going on in the supernatural and the spiritual sense. Social media is no substitute for real relationships. But that's not to say that your social media relationships are not real. They are. But I think there's a very big spiritual component to our relationships. You should pray for your friends, pray for your family. You know, unfortunately, social media can be a very negative experience for some people. That doesn't prevent people from having social media, but we don't want to get stuck there. And I want to see how we can do more in the way of benefits, or more in the way of having benefits from social media. So I'm going to put that together here in a moment when we come back from break. The Court of Public Opinion at the Field Report is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. You can also hear the Court of Public Opinion at the Field Report at 103.3 FM and 1370 AM, Charlotte, North Carolina. talking about topics regarding how we handle our social media profiles, social circles, how we manage our time, how we can be more effective. Because I can tell you, looking at the social trend and social experiments, many people can come away with a lot of good information, and this only build upon that. But outside of that, you have your everyday relationships, and you don't want it to be a substitute for the real thing. But there are some real benefits to having a good interaction. This is why I created this 10 years ago. I knew that it was, first of all, the idea behind what I created with this social platform is that, one, over time, not right away, we would build an audience, okay? And then we would have relevant topics that we can cover, okay? And an overall long-term relationship. The benefits of having long-term relationships is that you would eventually build those relationships for opportunities down the road, work, professional opportunities. You never know. You might get married. Who knows? But all those things matter to a degree, but it's no substitute for the real thing. And one of the things that happens because a lot of people live out of state is that they're not going to get to those people. And you have really great relationships. So we created opportunities to do things like on a conference call, for example, because we know that most of your social relationships are going to either be, it's just pretty much interacting socially on the internet, which is okay. I don't see anything wrong with that. And to what degree, to the intensity. I know it's hard to manage relationships outside of social media. I would not invest too much because you still have to manage the other things. You know what I mean? You have to be able to be practical, okay, responsible, and efficient with time. And one of the things that's really hard is to manage your time wisely on social media. How much time can I follow these topics, and how much time can I give to the people around me? And say I do have a relationship outside of social media, how am I going to manage it differently? How am I going to get that under control? Because a lot of times it starts to dominate time that you need to invest in other things. So we're learning as we go how to manage our time better, how to put some real practical things together so that we can be effective in other areas of our life. Because, notice if your time is consumed with social media, then there's a lot of things that consumes of you personally. You're deprived of maybe some sleep. Maybe you're deprived of exercise. Maybe you're not eating correctly. I mean, these are why I don't want to invest too much into social media as much as I want to invest into the web show. Okay, so this way you can listen to the web show at your leisure, at your time, and you'll be able to manage other things outside of that. Because if I'm investing all this time into social media and I'm not really getting the benefits that come with it, then there's something I need to do to change that. And we've touched on relationships, unfriending. One things like I really can't stand about social media is that there's just way too much invested personally, and people get hurt this way. You can hurt people for life, and I'm sorry if any of us ever went down that road with anyone. I hope that's a sincere apology if anybody ever hears that. I think the worst thing you can do, and it's like really kind of like burning bridges, and one of the more destructive things is the way people treat each other on social media. And you could be burning bridges that you don't need to. So be very careful. There's a lot of sensitive people on this end of this, okay? There's a lot of people that get hurt this way. And I hate to see that happen, especially watching how younger people interact this way. This is the way they communicate today. Told you about the social experiment I tried to do on my 6-year-old niece. She would not let go of the tablet. I was like, no, are you serious? Yeah, I told her we're going to get her a sponsor too. We all need a sponsor. I don't see anything wrong with learning to manage things and having some people to help hold you accountable. Accountability is really important, and you trust a number of people to help hold you accountable. You're not going to make foolish mistakes or mistakes that could really do harm to you and the other people. Okay, so accountability is one of those things. Okay, but let's look at some of the social media platforms out there. Facebook is number one we use primarily for the most part. YouTube or Vimeo or some of those Daily Motion where we post the web shows, things like that. The newest one is Candid. I like that. It's more anonymous. You can post whatever your personal thoughts are, and you can just like you don't have to worry about pretty much it coming back to haunt you. Pretty much. How we can apply social media to Twitter, things like that. I think there's a lot of hot topics. We've covered a lot of them, and it can really, really do a lot of damage to relationships. So let's try to be careful how we approach topics. And when in the future, I think what we're going to learn about is the social trends. I'm going to cover this topic more, how it applies to doing web seminars. This is what multimedia can accomplish. You can do a lot more in the way of web media. You could do multimedia. Or you could, build a structure in a business where there's actually real benefits. A lot of people are using PayPal, Patreon, as a way to pay for their social media. Okay, and I think it's really important that you invest a little bit back into your social pages because really, you're only going to get what you invest into it. Okay, that applies to everything. If you invest very little time into your relationships, you're going to get very little back over time. So I'm not saying just throw everything you have into it. Just do it and manage it properly and appropriately. A lot of times what happens is we have expectations of one another and they're not always fair. Okay, so we're looking at the pie chart and we're looking at all this stuff to say this. There's a lot out there. There's so much social content. There's so much information that you have to provide a filter for it and give yourself an exit. A lot of times I know that we invest a lot of time. I can't always keep up with responding back, but what I can do is always try to keep up for the best I can, the best we can, okay? But be able to invest more into the web show. This is why I created a web show, because this way, if I can't keep up with you guys in everyday conversation, you guys can always email me, say, let's touch on this topic. Let's provide more flexibility, okay? I hope what we've tried to accomplish is that outside of some of the topics other than politics, that we do have a life. There's other things that are important to us. We'd like to have more time with our family, and we'd like to manage it differently. So going forward, how we're going to manage it differently is all going to depend on ourselves every day. And if you make mistakes, how you manage your social profile and your social page, it's trial and error. We're learning as we go, okay? But one thing I hope is if you do a social experiment, try one on your family or your boyfriend or your girlfriend and see if they pass the test and report back to us, okay? But we're talking about funny, harmless stuff too, please. That I have to provide that disclaimer. But for the most part, we're going to cover that and more in topics ahead at the Court of Public Opinion. Thank you for listening. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. You can also hear the Court of Public Opinion at 103.3 FM and 1370 AM, Charlotte, North Carolina.
I will be all that you need. Just try.
The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. You can also hear the Court of Public Opinion at 103.3 FM and 1370 AM, Charlotte, North Carolina.